Welcome back to our donkey story time. I have a very wet Milo and a little bit drier donkey over here with Ollie. You'll actually notice at some point today if they start moving around, Milo's wearing the blanket today. Ollie is not, since they decided to play tug of war with their blanket outside today in the rain, and donkeys won. The blanket definitely lost. So I have some sewing to do, but that's how you'll be able to tell them apart today. I also thought I'd bring them some carrots. We'll see if maybe they want to eat some carrots while we read. So hopefully they do less snacking on our book today. We'll see. Mai, did you want a carrot? You want one too, Ollie? 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 Oliver? Can you smell it? Oh! There you go, buddy. You can have a good carrot too. All right, we'll check back in with Ralph, and if you remember, we're at the part of the story where Ralph still isn't so sure about Garf. He isn't sure if Garf is a motorcycle-loving, peanut butter-loving, fun boy, or if he sings these terrible, awful songs about animals, and if he's really somebody not to be trusted. So we'll take a closer look at that chapter today and see if we can finally figure it out. Aunt Jill sat down with her arm around Garf's shoulder and brought the boy back down inside. "Sit down, Garf," she said, and sat on a bench beside one of the work tables. Scowling, the boy obeyed. "What's the trouble, Garf?" asked Aunt Jill kindly. "What does she mean?" Ralph wondered. Garf stared at the floor. "You know you have been breaking one of the camp rules," said Aunt Jill. "Campers are not supposed to come into the craft shop without permission unless I am here or one of the counselors are here." So that's why he's always in a hurry, thought Ralph. He isn't supposed to be here. Not only does he like bloodthirsty songs, he also breaks the rules. Garf continued to stare at the floor. "Is there anything we can do to help you?" persisted the camp director. "No," said Garf suddenly. "Because I'm going to run away and nobody is going to stop me." What do you think? Good way to solve this problem? Let's see if we can get to the bottom of what the problem might be. Aunt Jill appeared to take the news calmly, but for some reason Ralph did not. He felt a shock of excitement. "Don't do it, boy," he wanted to squeak. "It won't get you any place." Ah, yes. Ralph had run away to get there in the first place, hence our title, Runaway Ralph. It won't get you any place. At the same time, he realized that a boy who wanted to run away was sure to like motorcycles. Maybe he had misunderstood Garf. Maybe Garf did like speed and would know how to make a miniature motorcycle run. "Is there someplace you especially want to go?" asked Aunt Jill. "No," said Garf. "Just away from here." Aunt Jill looked thoughtfully out the back window toward the barn and the riding ring before she turned to Garf and asked, "What do you want to do? What do you really want to do?" Ralph gripped the bars of the cage and waited for the boy's answer. Catso's paw appeared through the hole in the screen door, but the human beings did not notice. Ralph watched and listened. The hole in the screen had stretched another half an inch. So you can give me about half an inch. Remember, an inch about the size of your eyeball, half of that. Not a lot, but a lot if you've got a cat. A hungry, hungry cat on the other side. Garf picked up a scrap of plastic left over from someone's lanyard and twisted it around his fingers. "I can tell you one thing," he burst out. "I don't want to braid any lanyards. I braided lanyards in Cub Scouts. I braided lanyards at the YMCA. I braided lanyards in the park during the summer. And I braided lanyards in the after-school recreation program. Nobody needs more than one lanyard, and I'm tired of lanyards." After that outburst, he sat staring at the floor, and when Aunt Jill remained silent, he went on. "And I want people to stop feeding my mouse. I caught him in his butterfly net, and he's my mouse." "That's good," thought Ralph, "because if he runs away, he might take me with him, and then maybe I could escape and find my motorcycle again." "I think that can be arranged," said Aunt Jill. "You've told me what you don't want to do, and what you don't want other people to do. Now, tell me what you do want to do." Ralph could tell from Garf's silence that this request was a difficult one. Aunt Jill seemed to have plenty of time to wait while he thought. "You're thinking too, Milo?" Outside the craft shop, some of the boys were gathering bamboo husks to float in the irrigation ditch. Ralph watched to see if they might uncover his crash helmet and motorcycle, but they did not go too far inside the bamboo. "Well, began Garf and stopped. Aunt Jill waited. So did Ralph, who noticed that Chum was also listening. Remember, his hamster friend, his neighbor. Garth looked uncomfortable. Still, Aunt Jill waited. Go on, say something, thought Ralph. When Garth finally spoke, he no longer sounded angry. I guess I just want to be alone once in a while, he said. You want to be alone, repeated Aunt Jill. Yes, said Garth. At home, I have to share my room with my big brother who gets a top bunk and keeps his weightlifting stuff all over the floor. And every time I go into our room and shut the door, he comes in and starts playing music that I don't like. And after school and on Saturdays, it's always scouts or the Y or supervised recreation on the playground. My mom and dad say that city kids have to be kept busy, and then they send me here to camp. So they send you to camp, said Aunt Jill, encouraging him to go on. And you come into the craft shop to be alone. Yes, said Garth. I don't like to sit around after meals with a bunch of kids singing, You Are My Sunshine. Don't tell Milo. That was his song he sang for Mrs. Flurry, right? You Are My Sunshine is a great song, Milo. But you come in here and sing about rabbits banging mice on the head, thought Ralph. I don't like singing with other people, said Garth, because sometimes my voice can't carry a tune. I know that it sounds a little funny, and I don't like people turning around and staring at me. Nobody cares whether you can carry a tune or not, said Aunt Jill. But if you don't want to sing, you don't have to. And we all need to be alone sometimes. For the first time, Garth looked at the camp director. And I know something that might help, Aunt Jill continued. See that clump of bamboo over there? Anytime you feel like being alone, you may go and sit behind the bamboo as long as you wish. Ooh, remember what else is by that bamboo? Ooh, exciting. Garth looked as if he wanted to believe her. Remember, Garth, said Aunt Jill, it is possible to be alone in your thoughts even when there are others around. She rose from the bench where she and the boy had been sitting and found a piece of cardboard and a felt pen from the supply shelves. Now, about your mouse. You take this pen and make a sign saying this is your mouse and that no one else is to feed it. I'll sign it and make it official, and we'll tack it up over the cage. Garth did not say anything, but he took down the cardboard and the pen and settled down at a table to work. He found a ruler and marked straight lines on the cardboard to guide his printing. He worked a long time, ignoring the lanyard braiders, the mosaic makers, and insect collectors who came and went out of the craft shop. A few people paused to see what he was printing, but no one disturbed him. Ralph sat watching quietly as the sign progressed. Sometimes Garth whispered rhymes to himself. My, try, pry, pow, how, mow, read, lead, feed. Then he would go on with his work. He printed a few letters, stared at the ceiling, whispered to himself, and printed a few more letters. Near the end, he held up his work, studied it, and added something more. When at last he laid down his pen, and he stood up. Aunt Jill came over to look at his sign. Private. Keep out. This mouse is the personal property of Garfield R. Jernigan. If you feed him, you will drop dead. Maybe not the most friendly message. Signed. Aunt Jill signed her name on the dotted line. There, she said. That makes it official. It's a Happy Acres camp sign. She found 2 thumbtacks, and Garth tacked his sign above Ralph's cage. For the first time, Ralph saw Garth grin, and when the boy left the craft shop, he did not sit behind the bamboo as Ralph had expected. He stopped to watch some campers who were jumping and bouncing on the trampoline under the direction of a counselor. Contented for the moment, Ralph made himself into a ball in the corner of his cage to enjoy a nap. He was not just any mouse. He was the personal mouse of Garfield R. Jernigan, a boy who wanted to run away, and the next time he was alone with his owner, he would be brave enough to speak up no matter what dreadful song he sang. Now we have a little more time, so I'll read you a tiny bit more of chapter 6 as well. This is going to be another twist and turn in the story because this one is titled A Thief in the Craft Shop. At first, the sign over Ralph's cage was the cause of an argument. But Aunt Jill, how come Garth is the one who gets to feed the mouse? The campers asked. I want to feed the mouse too. Why can't I feed the mouse? It isn't fair. Nobody else has a mouse. Aunt Jill always gave the same answer. Garth gets to feed the mouse because the mouse is his. He caught it in a butterfly net. This policy inspired some of the campers to go mouse hunting. Big game hunting, they called it, with butterfly nets. But when no mice were caught, the enthusiasm waned and the campers generally lost their interest. Catso followed someone into the craft shop whenever he could, and whenever he succeeded, Aunt Jill said, "Somebody had better let that cat out." Usually, Lana was the one who picked up Catso and held him with his face over her shoulder as if he were a baby. "Poor baby," she crooned, patting Catso on the back as if she were burping an infant. Ralph found the whole look on Catso's face most annoying. Garth was happy, but Ralph was not. The boy showed no signs of running away, and now he was abiding by the rules, and the two were never alone. The bars of Ralph's cage enclosed a very small area, and no matter how fast he ran on his wheel, he remained in the same place. He began to sit motionless for long periods of time while he thought more and more about the freedom he had enjoyed back at the Mountain View Inn. He missed those long corridors and his exciting expeditions in search of food. What he had once called crumb scrounging now seemed a test of courage. He even came to admit that he missed his little brothers and sisters and cousins. They were nuisances, but they were livelier than a grumpy hamster like Chum. Perhaps he wouldn't mind giving some of those little mice, the boy mice, the girl mice, short little rides on his motorcycle after all. Most of all, Ralph missed his motorcycle. He clutched the wires of his cage and recalling the nights that he had sped through the corridors of the old hotel while guests snored behind closed doors. He tried to pretend they were the grips of his handlebars. Motorcycle noise, please. There was no use. The wires remained where they were. They were bars of a small prison, higher but not as long as an economy-sized Kleenex box. Ralph grew listless. So great was his homesickness that choice tidbits from the dining hall tempted him less and less. He sometimes skipped meals, preferring instead to curl up in a corner under some shredded paper, where he dozed, dreaming of dark nights and smooth floors and speed. "Cheer up," said Chum. "You'll get used to a cage." Ralph did not answer. He wanted to be alone with his thoughts, like Garth. Garth, on the other hand, no longer wanted to be alone. He came into the craft shop to tend to Ralph while the campers were present. And soon he became interested in the tools in the shop, and finally went to work with some other boys building wooden boats to float in the irrigation ditch. One long morning, Ralph passed the time by watching a girl named Karen. Karen was one of the older campers, a girl 12 or 13 years old with long blonde hair, which that morning was wet. All the older girls washed their hair several times a week. Karen was making an old plastic bleach bottle into a piggy bank. She turned it on its side so the handle was on top and glued corks in place for the legs, and then she cut a slit under the handle and painted eyes above the spout, which was now the piggy bank snout. Ralph noticed that Karen paused from time to time to scratch her left arm. Finally, Karen set her paintbrush across the top of the paint jar and removed her wristwatch, which she laid on the shelf beside Ralph's cage. He could hear it tick. She scratched the spot where the watch had been, returning to her painting, and then stopped to scratch again. "Karen, let me see your arm," said Aunt Jill, who was showing a boy how to lace together a wallet. "Why, it looks to me like you might have poison oak. You had better go and see the nurse about it, and be careful not to scratch it." "But Aunt Jill, it feels so good to scratch it," said Karen, tossing back her hair. "I know, but scratching only spreads the poison oak and makes it worse," said Aunt Jill. "Now run along and see the nurse. I'll wash off your paintbrush for you." It's almost time for the dinner bell. When the bell rang for the noon meal and the craft shop was empty, Ralph felt his fur rise along his spine. Sure enough, just as he expected, there was the curious paw of Catso exploring the hole near the screen door. Then a pink nose appeared. Catso must have pushed hard because the rusty screen gave way and the rest of his head appeared. Catso did not stop there. He pushed and wiggled until he got one shoulder and then the other shoulder through the hole. Then came Catso's front feet, followed by the rest of the beast. Catso was in the craft shop. Where was Sam? Ralph scuttled to the far corner of his cage where he turned his back to the world and tried to make himself invisible. He heard Catso land lightly on the work table beneath the cage and knew that this time there was no one to snatch the cat and shove him out the door. And I'm going to leave you hanging there. Not to worry, there's more of the story, I promise. So hopefully things will turn out okay. But right now we've got a Ralph and a chum all alone in the craft shop with Catso. We'll see what happens next the next time. Keep up the great work in our Google Classroom. Don't forget to look for moments where you can show kindness and caring to others and help out your families at home. I will see you all soon. Bye, guys.